Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to ARC's first quarter web window in 2018. My name is Mark, and I will be the moderator for today's session. In this web window, my colleague Stefan Miksch will provide you information on the current situation and future developments in the global machine building market.
So my name is Stefan Miksch. I'm an analyst with ARC, and maybe a little bit about myself. I joined ARC a little bit more than 6 years ago. My focus topics within this company are study production and studies based on machinery automation products like CNC control, sensors for factory automation, as well as some other topics that I cover within ARC. I also am responsible for our production machinery report that is published every year, and I'm also engaged in economic modeling. So this web window is covering the topic global machine building, and I will give you a brief overview of the market and the trends that we see within this industry. And to do so, I will go shortly through the agenda, what I want to show you. Regarding the market view, I will present you our ARC's machinery index, which is a way of showcasing data that we collect and giving you some examples for specific machinery segments, what we have experienced here in terms of market developments. And also I will show you a little bit outlook, what we expect in the future for the machinery market. Then I will switch over to market trends, and by market trends I mean two different ways of trends, either technical and the other business trends. And yeah, so let's go right into the topic. The ARC's machinery index. So what is the index? To produce this index, we collect revenue numbers from publicly listed OEMs, and we do this on a quarterly basis. And of course, we split this between different machinery segmentations, like machine tools or packaging or plastics machinery or robotics. We also collect additional machinery segments, but it should just show you a little overview here. Then we put these data that we collected into our database, make some analysis and calculations of this data, and index it to make the different machinery segments comparable, because people sometimes tend and are of course interested in seeing how specific machinery segments have developed over the past, and also to see, do other machinery segments develop the same when they, for instance, make strategic decisions, when they are automation suppliers, for instance, and they are focused on specific machinery segments. They are of course always interested how these segments developed in the past and maybe how they will develop in the future. So, and when we do this, we can produce our finalized index, generating some charts and figures that makes it more simple to understand the development of the history and also, of course, of the future, what we expect. This report is published quarterly as well. And within each report, we also include a special topic that covers, for instance, a deep dive into a specific machinery segment, or maybe an economic dynamic situation that affects the machinery market. And yeah, this is basically what our ARC's machinery index report is covering. So give you a short outline of this report, of our recent report and our findings, and what we collected in terms of data is that the global machinery market showed a relatively strong development during 2017. I wouldn't say this is complete news. Yeah, most of you might have experienced the same development. What is interesting is that really over the past years before 2017, the overall machinery market didn't develop that great, especially in some regions. America significantly went down over several quarters. Same was also with the Asian market, which is the reason, or the reason behind is that the Chinese market really lacked performance due to a lot of overcapacities. But the developments picked up in 2017 very strong again, and also Europe benefited very well from the Asian recovery in terms of exports going to China. Now I want to show you some selected machinery markets here and to get a little bit more deeper into the topic and have a deep dive, starting with the machine tool market. When you look at the left chart, you see that the machine tool market is relatively going up and down in many cases, which is basically the result of a very volatile market. The machine tool market is reacting critically to economic developments and crises. Is it either downturns or upturns? And as we can see, after the 2009 crisis, we had very strong increase. Then over the year 2015 and 2016, especially with the Chinese machine tool market, which is also very big, strong downturn, but the recovery in 2017 was very significant, and right now we see the market strongly recovering. This is also something we expect to continue in the future. Not on that high level, of course, but 2018 will still be a growth year for the machine tool industry. Interestingly is to see where the machine tools are actually going as end user industries. So to which industries is it increasingly sold? And one of them is the electronics industry, where end users are using more and more machine tools to, for instance, shape their cases for smartphones and tablets, for instance. So this is a growing market from a small level, of course, but it's one of the stronger segments of machine tool end user industries. The same goes with aerospace and defense industry, where this industry has seen particularly high order incomes for new planes from the larger carriers, but also new airlines that have, or not new airlines, but airlines that have acquired or want to renew their fleet. So here is also a lot of demand coming to the machine tool industry, into the aerospace and defense industry. Of course, there's always the threat to the machine tools, and often discussed with when you are at conferences or maybe trade shows. What we at ARC always hear, or often hear, that people feel, okay, electric vehicles might threaten the machine tool industry because the need for machine tools gets reduced by electric motor. Of course, it only needs some degree of machine tooled components compared to a combustion engine, but we see this trend or this development not really impacting the machine tool industry as of now. There's a lot of infrastructure problems to integrate electric vehicles on a broad scale. There is still a lot of vehicle production, or car production is still increasing significantly, that even if we change over slowly to electric vehicles, the sheer amount of more produced vehicles in the world, especially also in China, where we see strong upticks, and in India as well, will kind of counterbalance this negative development or this negative impact from electric vehicles. When we switch over to the packaging machinery market, we see a constant slow increase of the index, which is really representing the characteristics of this specific machinery market, because the main end user industry where packaging machinery is going to is the food and beverage industry. And the main reason here is that usually people cannot just stop to eat or drink. So the demand is always here compared to cars. If people have lesser money, they do not buy new cars, but drive their old cars longer. But food is still very important, of course, and it's therefore the packaging machinery industry is very stable. And there are also some drivers even driving a little bit more the growth. One is the urbanization. People move from the countryside to the cities and consume more processed food products. And also the global population is still growing, so the consumer market is just by that growing. When we look finally on the right side to the robotics market, industrial robots have been grown basically very strong over the past years. There was a slight downturn in 2016, which was also a result of a slowing down economy in China, when they have acquired large numbers of robots the years before and didn't really renew all their existing equipment and add equipment. But maybe to mention here, China is the largest consumer of industrial robots, with over 50% of all industrial robots installed per year. So the impact when China reduces their buying strategy regarding robots is really significant to the market. But overall, the market has been grown above or in double-digit rates over the past years. Also, what we see even in not only in China, where we have very high integration rates, but also in industrialized countries, more and more robots still are embedded and integrated into the production, partly just to reduce manual labor. Robots can do more and more sophisticated tasks, so they can work in critical environments, harmful to people. So there's always demand for robots, and this will continue to grow, and we see it still growing with double-digit growth in the next coming years. So it's definitely a market for automation technology that needs to be focused on in the future. Usually I would also go into individual countries and show you how individual countries perform on a machine basis, but given the time frame for this web window, but you're always welcome to approach us and ask us what do we see in individual countries regarding the machinery market, and we can go into a bit more and deeper discussion about this and tell you what we have found there, what we have experienced there, and share our information with you, of course. So please just approach us. But for now, I want to conclude this market view with our outlook, so what we expect in the future in the global machinery market. And the top chart here is based on what we see in revenue. So until 2017 is collected data from the market, and as you can see, in 2017 we had a nice uptick, a nice recovery in terms of revenues from the machinery manufacturing companies that we collected. And we also expect another over-average growth here in 2018, because there's still very high order income that we see within these companies and still going on in the first quarter of 2018. So even if the rest of 2018 will not perform that well, the orders that have been posted until now will still push up 2018 a little bit over the average growth. And in the long run, the market will slow down in growth, but still show a moderate between 2 to 3% at least growth over the future. So this of course affects also the capital expenditures spending of these machinery companies, partly in new automation technology, of course. And since this market is very fast-paced in terms of how quick to deliver the finalized products or machines, capital expenditures follow very closely to the revenue development. So we don't see much differentiation in CapEx spending and growth compared to the revenues. So to summarize, the drivers behind the overall growth are still the increasing wages in emerging economies. Countries in emerging economies have to invest more in automation since manual labor becomes too expensive. Then the already mentioned urbanization, the growing population, and of course we also have in industrialized countries the challenge and the problem of labor shortages. Birth rates are going down. The available labor workforce is just shrinking to some degree. So here also the need to keep up the production capacity can just be managed by automating even more than we already have. Of course, industrialized countries already have a very high automation level, but still here is more automation needed. And in emerging countries, of course, we also have a lack of skills. People sometimes are not very well educated, and so it's hard to bring people into the companies to do sophisticated tasks. So we also see that here, especially, still a very high level of new automation is demanded in these countries. And as some more countries achieving the ranks of new production countries, as China is already, for instance, outsourcing their textile manufacturing to Africa with Chinese machinery. This is just one example. So, and in Africa, there are not enough people there that are educated enough to do this work, and sometimes they just bring their own machinery and set up production there. Okay, let's switch over to market trends. And there are some technical trends, for instance, that I want to show you. Of course, it's just in slide overview. There are much more trends going on out there. And starting with edge computing. Edge computing is a new catchy phrase that we hear about a lot in the last, year. And the question is, what is the edge? The edge is the really in production. It can be different devices. It can be a robot, it can be a motor, it can be a drive, it can be a truck. And all these devices, when we talk about edge computing, have in common that they have to show some kind of intelligence, some degree of intelligence with computing functions, and they have to be able to network with other networks outside their working area, their working space. They have to store data, and in some cases also to analyze individually data collected and make decisions based on this collected data. So what happens at the edge? We store this data, and also the edge device buffers information so that the network, often today in modern digitized manufacturing, data is sent to the cloud, where the cloud analyzes the data and maybe sends it back. But in many cases, almost all data is sent to the cloud, which of course takes up a lot of network bandwidth. And the edges, intelligent edge device, can buffer this data so that only relevant information is sent upwards to the cloud. So this means that they are filtering and preparing information that's not needed that's not needed in the actual cloud, but only needed for performing their own task, which the edge device needs to fulfill. So really here it does some kind of limited analytics compared to what is available in the cloud. Use cases when edge computing makes absolutely sense in industrial environments, and therefore also with machinery, is that when the machinery or the equipment is based in areas where there's a low or intermittent connectivity, so that they can do more or less all their analysis on site and not really have to communicate with a cloud service outside their working area. If there are bandwidth problems, and when they should usually or often send a lot or a high amount of data to the cloud, and this is just not possible because of bandwidth problems, often on countryside locations where manufacturing has been set up, but the internet infrastructure is just not that good. So this also makes sense. Then, of course, in many cases, the immediacy of analysis of data to show results, to show maybe the operators what's needed, what they can do, or what they have to do to improve productivity, or see, okay, there might be a problem occurring. And also for real-time analytics. And in many cases, there are also cybersecurity constraints, which means that companies applying machinery or assets or devices just don't want to send a lot amount of data through the network to somewhere else, to their centralized ERP system or whatever, because they fear that it can be intercepted and misused for different reasons. So they say, okay, only a specific amount of data should be sent out from the edge device. and filtered information only, not the one critical to production, for instance. Yeah, and often this data gets sent to cloud platforms. And when we think about clouds, it's definitely not new. We all know what clouds are today, but the suppliers and web services and cloud service suppliers, the offering has increased in the past years significantly. There are so many cloud platforms right now out there offering different solutions in many cases. So it's often very hard for the machine builders to tell, okay, which cloud platform, I want to digitize my infrastructure. I want to offer services to my clients. But for that, of course, I'm not a software specialist. I want to use a cloud platform to integrate this there. But it's very hard for them sometimes to select, okay, which is the right solution right now, because it's not like that some of them have really set foot in the market because there's not much history of success for different cloud platforms. And it's still a struggle right now between some of these platforms. Some of them are opening up to have the ability to integrate other platforms to work together, so that the end users don't have to choose between different platforms, but can actually use different platforms at the same time and integrate it to maybe a higher level of information analysis or analytics or whatever the purpose is when they use a cloud platform. One of the most showcased trends I've seen at different trade shows was augmented reality solutions. In most cases, the augmented reality is used to offer service and support, and this around the world at any time. So when a machine has a failure or shuts down, the OEM does not necessarily have to send someone over by plane, which might take hours or even days to reach the affected equipment or part, but can actually, in a very short amount of time, very short period of time, work together with their client to fix the problem, showing them what they have to do on the premise through these augmented reality devices. Might it be a augmented reality glasses or a tablet, or some, I also have seen software solutions that can be applied to smartphones and filming the equipment, and they can show, okay, you have to change these cables or these cartridges to help people fix the machine relatively quickly and get back into production. So this is a very typical application for augmented reality, but there are also, of course, other possibilities. I've seen a company offering virtual augmented reality to showcase the virtual machines inside the client's manufacturing location, even showing them, okay, this will be the output in your factory. So an empty hall, for instance, an empty location, and they say, okay, we can place these machines like this and that. We can order them, and that we can switch if the client wants. Okay, maybe I want to switch it. So can do this, a lot of this stuff upfront by augmented reality solutions. It's very interesting and a good marketing tool. Then, of course, operator training is possible. That it's not necessarily needed to send over a teacher or some expert to train the staff that has to operate the machine or the equipment in the end and teach them for weeks, but they can do it online via augmented reality solutions. So they can tell them, okay, if you want to use this machine the right way, you have to use these buttons and maybe these parameters and all this stuff. So it's also becoming more common in the market to use this to reduce costs of training and maintenance costs. Of course, remote maintenance I already mentioned. Those are basically the most applications that we have seen with augmented reality so far that makes absolutely sense and reduce downtimes and improve operational performance. Yeah. So of course, this all has an impact on the automation technology itself, because everything has to be connected. which results in many cases in higher cybersecurity measurements. And machine builders and end users often are afraid of what might happen to my data. Who is the owner of this data? Am I the owner of the data when my machine produces all this data, but I sent it to a third-party supplier who uses this data to analyze something? And there's a lot of discussion going on right here, and there's no law globally backing up the ownership, because data gets sent around the whole globe. And here politics really have to take care of that, who's the owner of the data. Of course, to integrate all these different technologies, we need to have open standards, and there are some initiatives trying to move forward this standard discussions, and we see some progress here, but it's still not done. And I've heard, okay, this is a process that will never be done. There will always be different standards out there, but it's improving right now, the system. So it's not like we're heading into another field bus war, what we have seen, but it's still not quite clear what the outcome will be in the end. Of course, everything needs to have more sensors. If we want to know what's happening at the machine, we need to add more sensors, not only in the machine, but maybe also outside to see what's going on around it, because this might be a very important part of maintenance, for instance, productivity and performance of the machine. Then increased amount of IoT routers and gateways is on the way. We also have studies covering this topic, and we see really large increases in sales and production of these tools and applications out in the market, just because they are really required to achieve a digitized manufacturing. Fast networks, of course, it's a highly discussed political thing, because it's infrastructure and it has to be provided by the countries in most cases, or organizations or companies that offer the network technologies. And to realize all this data transmission, it's really necessary to have a lot of and stable networks installed. What's also very interesting is that we see a strong shift to software solutions. So when machine builders in the past were really just taking care of improving machinery output and speed of producing, which was in most cases just hardware based, they more and more have to also offer software solutions with their machine. And of course, a traditional machine builder is not a software specialist. So that's why these different platforms become more and more interesting for them to use them. Of course, it's still not quite clear which is the best solution in many cases for them. But here we see a lot of development, and hardware in some cases more and more becomes a commodity. A business trend in the end. I want to show two business trends that we have observed. One is, and this is a direct example that I've seen and explained by a company who produces auto body presses for the automotive industry. And they have a manufacturing basically in Germany, based in Germany, but they also produce and have manufacturing locations in China. So what they do is that the brain and the heart of this press is designed, engineered in Germany, and also the equipment for the control unit is designed in Germany, then shipped to China. Then the drives, for instance, are coming from South Korea, the sensors from Japan. And in the end, the whole machine is assembled in China, because in China the steel is cheap, the labor that's needed is cheap, and they do this whole final assembly. And then the machinery gets exported to other countries. The most most machines are manufactured for the local market, but it's very interesting to see that they do this also to export into other countries, not for the European market in that case, because there they have their own sales network coming out of their German manufacturing. But it's what we see more and more coming with larger machine builders, that they do a global sourcing strategy to make use of cheaper products and maybe also whitelisting of some automation equipment. And of course, in the end, the revenues are booked to the headquarters in Germany. So another very interesting new, or not completely new, but business trend is the equipment or machinery as a service. So in a traditional business model, the OEM sold its machine to the end user, who was the owner of the machine, who had to take care of the payment, who had to take care of insurance, and when the machine failed, it contacted the OEM or maybe a service company to fix the machine or the equipment, and or had a service contract with the industrial OEM, and often took some time to get it back working, and they had to wait, and maybe even they had their own on-site experts and had to do once or twice a week a maintenance route, but on the other time it wasn't not really needed, and it's more and more hard to find those experts today. So the new business model is that the industrial equipment or machinery manufacturer equips the end user. So he does not really sell the machine to the end user. He sells the task or the work step or the use what the machine or the equipment produces. So there might be, for instance, say, okay, we only want to see the individual outcome of the machine, like if it's a compressor, for instance, we want to see how much compressed air is actually used. So you pay for the compressed air and not for the compressor, because the end user might not be interested in maintaining the compressor. They just want to say, okay, I want compressed air. That's what I need for my next work steps. And in the end, the OEM maintains the equipment, takes care of the insurance, and provides the all-time availability of the machine. Of course, this needs data transmission from the equipment to the OEM, so that he sees, okay, compressor's working fine, or there might be happening some problems in the future because a component seems to be failing. That's what we see when we analyze all this data and can plan the maintenance upfront. This was really a quick and brief overview of some of the trends that are affecting the machinery market. Of course, we can share much more information and go very deep, much deeper into the individual topics. One of our opportunities to do this is during our events that we host at ARC. We have different forums. The next one is coming up in May, 15 to 16 May in Barcelona, where we can share and discuss information and experience. We invited many machine builders. We also have case studies presented by users. We have workshops, and it's a very good networking opportunity between vendors, integrators, and users. And you're, of course, welcome to join this forum.
This is all we have for today's webinar. So visit our web pages at arcweb.com and our industrial IIoT blog pages. Stay tuned for new trends and research topics that we cover. Thank you all for joining our web window. And if you have any further questions, you can just contact us. I wish you a great day, and I hope you will join our upcoming web windows as well.